Today, I am answering a question that a listener sent in. Rachel sent me an email and she said, can you talk about what to do after you've had to use your emergency fund? How do you adjust your budget to build it back up, handle the emotional side of starting over, and cope when emergencies just keep coming? She says that my husband and I are so thankful we had our emergency fund, but it took us a long time to save, and losing that progress feels really discouraging. I love that Rachel sent in this question because I have been there many times before where I've had to use my emergency fund and it's like a punch to the gut. I get frustrated and honestly, sometimes I don't even want to use it because that means I have to rebuild it back up. If you ever felt like you've just gotten your savings up and then something happens and now it's gone again, this is for you. Today, we're going to be covering three main things: how to reframe the way you think about your emergency fund, how to actually rebuild it back up in a practical and doable way, and how to handle the emotional side of using your emergency fund. I will never forget that my husband and I were only a couple of months away from reaching our goal of being debt-free whenever his car, that was pretty old, started acting up. And so we took it to the shop and we realized that his transmission was dead or almost dead. I don't know, dying. Now, I'm not a car girly. I don't know a lot about transmissions and cars and what goes into them. However, transmissions are expensive. And a lot of times mechanics might actually suggest for you to just abandon the car entirely, sell it for parts, and get a new car instead. And that was something that they talked to us about because his car was pretty old. The question was, would it be cost effective to get a brand new transmission? Could we find one that we could rebuild, or would it just be better off for us financially to completely let it go? Here's the deal though. We were just a couple of months away from being debt free, meaning we had been working to pay off debt for 4 years at this point. And the idea of selling his car and taking a loan out for a new car, even if it was a car that was $7,000 or $10,000, it felt like we would just be going in the complete opposite direction of what we had been working on for so long. So we decided to rebuild his transmission, meaning that we got a new transmission, I guess, like a broken one, another broken one. They fixed that and they put it in his car. And when we did that, we were able to cover the cost of it using our emergency fund. At the time, we had $4,000 in our savings account. And I think that the entire process cost us about $3,500. So we basically got all the way down to almost nothing in our savings account so that we didn't have to essentially sell his car and go further into debt during this whole process. Now, I'm going to be honest with you here. That was a hard decision to make. And whenever I saw our emergency fund essentially disappear right in front of my eyes, it was like a punch to the gut. I felt like, oh my gosh, we've been working so hard. Now we have to change and shift all of this. We have to pause our debt-free journey so that way we can rebuild our emergency fund. And it just felt like I was taking, 10 steps back. But then I realized our emergency fund in that moment, even though I wasn't happy about what happened, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It helped us cover that emergency so that we didn't have to put anything on a credit card, go further into debt, take out a personal loan. Was it what we wanted to happen? No. But when are emergencies anything that we ever want to happen? One of the very first things I had to do when we were dealing with that situation and having to use money from our savings is I had to reframe what happened. If your AC goes out and you end up having to spend thousands of dollars to get it fixed or even replaced, let me just say you did the right thing. You used your emergency fund for something that, by all means, living in Texas and the heat is considered an emergency. You used your savings exactly as you had intended. It's just that maybe you didn't use it on something that you look forward to spending money on, but it was there and you used it exactly how you said one day you would use it. This isn't a setback. And I know that for me, I have to remind myself that whenever something comes up and we have to pay for something unexpectedly, using my emergency fund isn't a setback. It is proof that the financial plan I put in place worked. So I think that we have to reframe it and see it as proof that what you did what you set yourself up for is actually working. It's normal to treat our emergency fund as if it's a trophy, something we should never touch. And I think that's because you worked hard. You worked hard to get that money into that savings account. But it's not a trophy. It's not just this thing we have sitting over there that is never supposed to get any use. It is a tool. It is a resource, and it's okay whenever you have to tap into it. The truth here is that you didn't lose progress when it came to your financial goals. No, what you did was you used your progress to cover yourself. The time and energy that you spent putting that money away in savings, you can now use that whenever unexpected things come up. You've already proven that you can save the money once. You've done it. You no longer have to prove to yourself that it's even possible. You know it is because you've already done it. That means you can do it again. You can replicate that process, sometimes even faster or quicker, because you know more about your money, you know more about your spending habits than you did in the past. So let's first reframe actually using our emergency fund. See it as proof that your financial plan is working. Okay, let's get down to the step-by-step of how to actually rebuild your emergency fund once you have used it. I'm going to break this down into 5 steps, or really 5 tips, if you will. And the first thing is to look at what happened. Why did you have to tap into your emergency fund? What expenses did you have to cover? Were they truly emergencies? I know that I have been guilty of spending my emergency fund on things that weren't truly emergencies. I'll be the first to admit that. Look at what happened. Was it actually an emergency? Is it something that maybe you should have expected to happen eventually? For instance, let's say that it was a car repair. If you know that you're going to have car repairs over and over again, which everyone usually does if you're keeping cars long enough, maybe it's time to look into setting up a sinking fund for car maintenance. If you see that you are spending money on emergencies that are recurring or have the same theme, it might be time to set up a sinking fund for those things. The second tip is to set a realistic rebuild goal. Let's say that you had $5,000 in your emergency fund and you drained it all the way down to $1,000. You want to rebuild it back up to $5,000. It can be really easy to say, okay, I'm giving myself 1 month. 1 month, I need to put $4,000 into a savings account. Ready, set, let's go. Look, that is a recipe for burnout and honestly failure, especially if you don't make enough money. You don't have an extra $4,000 a month to put into your savings. So instead of trying to put all this pressure on yourself, set up a more realistic, smaller goal. Maybe you instead are going to send $1,000 a month to your emergency fund or $500 a month to your emergency fund until it gets back to where you are comfortable. My third tip is to adjust your budget and cut back on your expenses, even if it's just temporary. This is the perfect opportunity for you to find easy, short-term ways for you to scale back on your spending over the next 3 to 6 months. Here's an example. I know that if something happens and we do have to use our emergency fund, there are areas in our budget where we will cut back over the next 3 to 6 months to save money. A lot of those are variable expenses, different subscriptions we have. We would do things like eat out less or spend less money on entertainment, travel less, things like that. Look at your spending and ask yourself, where are you willing to cut back, even if it's just temporary, even if it's just a small amount every single month, to be able to send more money to your emergency fund to get it back up to a place where you want. This right here is a classic trade-off. If it pains you to not have a fully funded emergency fund, then I can guarantee you can go through your spending and you will easily find things that you're willing to let go of temporarily so that you are no longer bothered from not having that money in savings. The fourth tip for you to rebuild your emergency fund is to automate it. Set up automatic transactions, even if it's $25 a week, to go straight to your savings so that you don't have to talk yourself into making those transfers every single month. Set it up to where it's automatic. And tip number 5 is to use windfalls to your advantage. You might get a Christmas bonus, a tax refund, a quarterly bonus, maybe gift money. Anytime that you get money, then use that money to help rebuild your emergency fund. Windfalls don't have to be a large amount of money. It can be any money that you're getting that you did not expect or don't use in your monthly budget normally. Now that we've covered the practical ways to rebuild your emergency fund, let's talk about the emotional side of it. When Rachel emailed me, she said she wants me to cover how to handle the emotional side of starting over. It seems that she has used her emergency fund, and she said that losing that progress feels really discouraging. I am a firm believer that money is not about just math. If money was math, no one would struggle with money. No one would struggle with debt. The reason why people struggle comes down to the emotional side of money, the choices we have to make, the things that we tell ourselves about money, what we've learned about money in the past, how that impacts us. It is only normal. It's only natural for you to be impacted emotionally and to feel discouraged, to feel frustrated, to feel like, oh, what am I doing wrong whenever you use your emergency fund? Because you are seeing that balance, that bank account balance that you worked hard. You worked hard to get it up to that number, go down. And that is a gut punch because what you might be seeing is the money gone, but what you are really seeing is the time, the energy, the sacrifices that you made to get that money where it was in the first place. And while this is a completely natural feeling, I think that it's really easy for us to sit in this place. And I know because I've done this myself, sit in this place of, oh, I had to use my emergency fund and now I have to build it back up and this stresses me out and this isn't going as planned. No, instead of seeing it that way, see it as a way to be proud and celebrate what you have set yourself up for. You handled this unexpected expense exactly as you planned with your emergency fund. Past you said something's going to happen, something's going to come up, and guess what? Present you gets to say, hey, I was right. I planned for this to happen. I knew this would happen. And now I'm going to use my emergency fund exactly as I said I would. My last tip is that when you are working to either build up your savings for the very first time or rebuild your savings after you have to use it, one of the things I highly recommend is visually tracking your progress. Maybe it's because I was a teacher in my past career and I like seeing things visually, but there's something about shading in a thermometer or having some sort of coloring tracker where you can actually track your progress so you can visibly see how you are making progress. It is so motivating to track a goal you are working towards. So if you're feeling down, if you're feeling frustrated, I highly recommend that you get yourself an easy visual tracker. You can honestly just go online and Google free savings tracker, free savings coloring sheet. You'll be able to find so many that you can print it out, color it in, and visually see that progress. It will help keep you motivated. Rachel, thank you so much for sending in this question. I know you're not the only person that feels this way and is struggling with dealing with the emotional side of using their emergency fund after things come up. And if you have had to dip into your savings, just remember, you didn't fail. You used that money that you set aside exactly as you intended to use it for emergencies. You should be proud of the fact that your past self set your present self up for success. I know that rebuilding might feel slow, but you are not, thank goodness, you are not starting from scratch. And instead, you are starting from experience. You've already proven that you can save up this money once, so I have no doubt that you can save it up again. If you enjoyed this video, then you are going to love my video all about how to pay off credit card debt fast. I'm breaking it down step by step, exactly what you need to do, and the video even includes a free guide that you can print off right away. Be sure to check it out right here.